Sometimes even good people can make a mistake. And when it happens, it's one of the most intense and emotional experiences of your life. It could be a DUI, or maybe you were in the wrong place with the wrong people at the wrong time. Or perhaps you just did something stupid at the spur of the moment without even thinking, and now you're in trouble with the law. Well, you need experienced legal help right away so you don't become a victim of the criminal justice system. Even good people can make a mistake, and if you, a friend, or a loved one has been accused of a crime, don't make another mistake by hiring the wrong attorney for the kind of help you need. You need to visit toddjohnslaw.com. That's toddjohnslaw.com, and then call Attorney Todd Johns today. Attorney Todd Johns has decades of experience helping good people like you who have made mistakes or bad decisions and will stand by you every step of the way. toddjohnslaw.com.
Hey, RJ Roger is back on That's Enough Out of You. How's it going, RJ?
Going great. Thank you guys for having me back. I appreciate it. I know I really enjoyed the first discussion that we had.
Yeah,
so.
welcome back, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's great.
You.
So,
all right,
Billy, let's start it off, buddy. You got the topic you want to talk about. Let's start with that, and then we'll hit at some other bullet points that me and RJ were talking about. But
well, I wanted RJ to talk to you about Joe Pistone because as most people who follow organized crime know, he was Donnie Brasco, right? He was the guy who went undercover and really infiltrated the mob and probably, I mean, as deep as anybody has ever gotten into the mob. I mean, he's practically a made guy. But I want to talk real quick because I was just listening to I don't know if it was a podcast. It must have been a podcast that Sammy the Bull was on. He's doing all these podcasts now in addition to his own, where he talked about Joe Pistone, you know, people praising him as a hero, but he's saying Joe Pistone is not a hero, that because of him, all of these guys ended up getting killed. But I mean, it wasn't, it's not like he, you know, he's not the guy that killed them. I mean, the mob has to obviously take the blame for that. I don't know. What are your thoughts there? First of all, a little bit, you know, maybe tell us a little bit about your, you know, your knowledge of that whole case and all of the research that you've done. And then, you know, maybe touch on what I just said about Sammy the Bull's statement.
Well, that's kind of funny. I guess, you know, and one of the things that Pistone talked about when he was speaking, when he testified, I believe he did a Senate hearing that he testified at. And, you know, one of my favorite parts of that testimony was when he broke down to understand the psychology of these mafia guys. You have to almost suspend your way of thinking. So like what you just said, like, what? But see, he broke this down as in their world, that is the way they don't think nothing like the way an outsider thinks. They're like a subculture unto themselves, and a person like Sammy, from even how Joe Pistone testified against this, he would think something like that. They don't look at things like murder and theft and doing the wrong thing. That's the right thing when you are brought up in that type of a world. And the wrong thing is to do stuff like cooperate and things like that. But it's a strange way to understand life. I mean, from a person who's not brought up in it. But you know, Pistone actually said in the testimony that because of that exact type of thinking, when he came out of that 6-year undercover, he had an even worse opinion of these guys. Like, he looked at it even worse than he looked at it before he got into it. He really wanted to get as many off the streets as he could. They almost paint a picture in the movie Donnie Brasco as though, you know, Pistone was becoming one of these guys. They show that thing with his wife's like, you're just like them now. But that was just, and that wasn't, from how I read his testimony and things that he has said, that's just hype in the movie. But no, he really really saw these guys for, you know, what they were. He said there's no honor among thieves. It was constant backstabbing.
Sure.
That's how he spoke about it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, you know, although you would think he would have to be somewhat in that mindset, right, to be able to live that way, because you know you got to think. I mean, if you slip up even just a little bit in that world, they're not going to hesitate to kill you. So you really have to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have to think like them. You have to act like them. You have to be like them in order to make that, to survive in that world. So when he comes out of there, I'm sure he had to go through, you know, some sort of therapy to kind of almost come back to reality and live a normal life again.
You know, he was born in Erie, but he was raised in Patterson, New Jersey. And my understanding is he's Italian himself. I think he's Sicilian on his mother's side. But he was around certain behavior that was probably the Del Cavalcantes or something growing up. So he had a little bit of knowledge on how these guys behave. He had the cultural knowledge. He spoke Italian. He understood Sicilian heritage and things like that. So he had an understanding of, to a certain extent, probably more than the average undercover agent will go into it. He didn't have to go take, you know, Jack Garcia had had to do a little bit more schooling before he went undercover when he was going after Craig De Palma and all those guys. That's not what Joe Pistone had to do. He had the cultural stuff. He had to go learn about jewelry and
Right.
things like that. He
Yeah.
had the other piece when he got into it.
Okay.
So, but then when he got into it and he just saw, like, you know, they talk about honor and respect, but everything he saw, according to him, was just constant lying, cheating, backstabbing, just spending all day. He said in his testimony that from sun up to sundown, all they did was talk about scores that they did. What's the next score? How are we going to make money? He said they loved their children and their family, but the mafia was number one, family was two, God was three, and country was four. Mafia came number one, and that's everything to them. 7 days a week, 365. It was all they were about, was making money and just backstabbing, bad, betraying, lying, deceiving all day nonstop. Now, this is how his 6 years undercover, this was his narrative coming out.
RJ, what about the guys though that he became the closest to? The guys like Lefty and Sonny Black, and you know the movie they portray it as like he really became, you know, he was really friends with them, and part of him he did feel bad about things that happened. Do you think that was Hollywood taking a spin, or do you think he really did come really close with these guys because he spent so much time with those two guys?
Again, the movie's one of my favorite movies of the subject, but the movie shows him very close with Lefty, and I believe he probably spent a lot of time with Lefty. But from how he explains it, when I hear him talking and reading things in his book and reading his testimony and stuff,
Funny.
seems to be that it was Sonny Black was really the one that he was really close with. He told a story. He even told this story on Joe Rogan recently of how he would sit in in Sonny Black's apartment in their underwear watching cartoons, and Sonny Black would go out and get coffee and hard rolls and things, and they would just, you know, he was like a everyman. So, but I don't know that he had any sour feelings about putting these guys in jail. He did say, you know, I didn't want them to die. I didn't get into it for them to die. I got into it to lock them up. And he never, from what I found, showed any like remorse for, like, you know how they show the scene where he's going to give money to Lefty so he can just run off and get in the boat and leave. I don't know how. I think some of that's just Hollywood.
Sure.
Because he seemed to be pretty loyal to, he wanted to put these guys away. He really did.
So go ahead, Billy. You got anything else?
No, Sean, go ahead.
No, so talk a little more, RJ. Talk about, so do you think, let me ask you this. So do you think that's the reason that Sonny ended up getting whacked over this whole thing and Lefty didn't, is because Sonny was the one that was actually close and he's the one that introduced him to other bosses. And I believe even Traficante introduced him to, right?
He did. Um, I think they would have killed Lefty also. I think what happened is Lefty ended up getting arrested. Um, they got to Sonny first. There's some debate over this because the boss of the family at the time, Joe Messino,
Hmm.
he testified that Sonny Black was not killed because of Donnie Brasco's situation. He was the boss of the family at the time. He's the guy that ordered the death of Sonny Black. But he said in his testimony that he ordered Sonny Black to be killed because Sonny Black was essentially a usurper. He was trying to usurp and take over the family and take power. I think it's crap. I don't believe it. I think this Sonny Black was killed about 2 weeks following um, Joe Pistone coming out, and he was exposed as an FBI agent. It was I think like 15 days or something. He was killed, dead.
Mm.
Um, so there is some, and even, so there's some debate over. Some people say, yeah, I believe Joe Pistone. I don't buy it. I think Joe Pistone was just trolling. I'm sorry, Joe Pistone. Um, Joe Messino. I think he was just trolling the FBI. He just didn't, in my opinion, he just didn't want the FBI to feel like I did it because of you guys. That's what I think. So I think he just threw that out there. But the fact that he died 2 weeks, after, if he was trying to be a usurper, why didn't you just kill him even before Joe Pistone was exposed? So yeah, I think Sonny Black was killed because of the Joe Pistone situation. They say they chopped his hands off. There's some debate about that. They don't know if it was just, you know, they rotted off essentially. He was missing some fingers and stuff when they found him. Joe Pistone says he even testified and said that, his hands were chopped off for shaking hands with a boss, for
Right.
introducing, uh,
Uh-huh.
FBI agent to a boss. Um, so there's some people debate it on both sides. If you ask me, I think he was 1,000% killed for you. Why would you not be killed for that? For
Right.
something that
Sure.
serious.
What's
Now,
crazy?
I'm sorry, and then Anthony Mirror, I believe he went into hiding. He was killed like a year later or something like that. They found him and he was killed. He was set up by his own family. I think his cousins or stuff were involved in his killing. And then Lefty went to prison.
Mhm.
What's crazy is that they didn't believe the FBI when the FBI went to them and said, Donnie Brasco was really this FBI agent. They didn't believe him.
Was that true or was that just in the movie though?
No, no. From what I look at, it looks like that is true. That they
Yeah.
really didn't believe it at first.
I think Joe even said that in that podcast with Joe Rogan. I think he mentioned that.
He
Yeah.
did, and I mean, the guy, this guy was right next to these guys for a long time. To go undercover that long, I mean, that's a long. He wasn't supposed to be there for 6 years.
Right.
It wasn't even what ended up happening. Wasn't even what he was going after. He was going after fences, like people who were involved in all these cargo hijackings and
Mhm.
things like that. It was so much of it going on that they were trying to go after that. It was originally supposed to be like a 6 month operation. It was never supposed to be 6 years. So when you're around someone, and if you understand the mob, when you're on record with somebody, connected with somebody, if you're deeply involved in the crew, that's your job. 7 days a week, you go check in with the boss or whoever you're with. In this case, Sonny Black. Every day, you can't take vacation because you want to take vacation. You don't get a day that you don't have to answer the phone or pick up the phone, or I'm just going to stay home all day today. It's not like that. It's no different than everybody else that has a job. except we do get maybe a set, 2 days off on the weekend. Not for them, but no different than you can't just no call, no show. You can't no call, no show with the guy you're on record with. So 6 years, you're tied at the hip every day. And that's what he said. It was long hours of sitting around talking about all this scores and everything that you're going to do. I mean, and he was trusted. He introduced Bonannos to Chicago people, Santo Trafficante. You
Hey,
know,
Milwaukee too, right?
Milwaukee, they liked him. They really trusted and liked this guy, and they saw him as a guy that had the ability to move up. They were going to put him on record. I mean, they didn't just put him on record; they were going to make him, and they should have made him. I think I do agree with him on that. They had the three capos murder, and they ended the whole operation after that. But in my opinion, if you can have made him, had the chance to do it, you should have did it because it would have been the biggest embarrassment to the mafia ever. If your
Oh
goal
yeah.
was to take the mob down, you should have made them. Yeah, I agree.
Let me ask you this, Sergeant. How would they have made him without him, doing any work specifically, like whacking a guy? Because in the movie they have it where he was going to whack. I think it was Sonny Rad's son,
Hmm.
and that's when they pulled it. Right? He was in on that.
Yeah, apparently they were supposed to kill Bruno and Delicato,
Bruno,
and
right?
yeah, and Bruno got away and he was hiding out in Florida or something, and they gave him the job to kill Bruno. But I think I even read something before that Sonny was just going to lie and say that that he did do a piece of work, that he made his bones, that maybe he was there with the three capos hit or something. I'm not sure. But that thing about you have to kill somebody to be made, that's exaggerated a lot. If everybody who's a made member in the mafia had killed somebody, there would be no mafia. So there's too many, you would kill everybody off. So
Right.
um, now the old timers, when you go further back, at a time it wasn't like pull the trigger, squeeze the trigger, you shot a guy. Being on a murder in some way. Maybe you're a driver. Maybe you dig a hole. Maybe you're just on the hit. At a time, the old time guys used to like you to be on a murder, but it was not the absolute requirement to get made. You can get made for being a good earner. You can get
Right.
made because you represent some type of value. The way to get made was you're delivering a value to the organization and you're trusted. And usually the value is you're bringing in money.
Hmm. Let me ask you this, because it's been a while since I've seen that movie. But was Donnie Brasco, was Joey Messino in that movie? Because I know they portrayed Rusty Rastelli was the boss, they said in the movie, and he's his reign. He was mostly in jail, right, through most of his reign. But did they have Messino in that movie? And was he?
Not that I remember. No, I don't remember anything about Messino in the movie. But Messino talked about it a little bit. He said he never trusted Joe Pistone. He he was suspicious of him, he claims. But it's easy to Monday morning quarterback to say that
Sure,
after
sure.
after he comes out. But no, see, after all of that, the Bonannos lost their seat on the commission.
Right.
Joe Messino was very close with John Gotti, who was running the Gambino family.
Yeah, they live by each other, right?
Yep, they did. They used to do hijackings together. They were pretty close, like
Right.
truly. But Joe Messino, when he was boss of the family, they didn't have a commission vote. John wanted to try to help get Joe Messino back onto the commission to have a vote. But, I think from some of the things we read, Chin didn't vote and agree with that because I think he kind of knew that John was trying to control. John was controlling Joe Messino. He was backing Joe Messino, was his friend.
Right. Sure.
He kind of knew I have an extra vote here
Yeah.
for if I
Right.
can
Sure.
because I got Joe. So Joe Messino kind of came in after Rastelli. Okay, he's gone, and the whole Bonanno case is exposed. Joe Pistone is exposed, and now Messino steps in and kind of gets power.
And when did they lose their seat? Was that after the Carmen Galante mess? When after he got whacked and everything, they lost it twice, right? Didn't they lose it after Bill Bonanno when that whole thing, and then they got it back, and then they lost it again, I think.
Yeah, they had. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. During the Banana Wars, with when Joe Bonanno was having some issues with Carlo Gambino and the commission. Yeah,
Right.
you're right. The family went into civil war. They split in two. They were. So yes, you're right. That did happen twice. But as far as they were back on, and then the Joe Pistone thing happened, and
Right.
that's when I believe they lost their seat after Joe Pistone was revealed to be an FBI agent.
Okay. Billy, you got something?
Um, no, I just, I remember, RJ, last time you were on, how, you said that you were in the presence of some of these guys, and you kind of felt like, they looked at you like you don't belong here, you shouldn't be here. And I can't even imagine, and I know you said he kind of grew up in that environment, but still, I mean, if you're not one of them, it has to be intimidating, especially when you're walking in and meeting these bosses and uh, rubbing rubbing shoulders with some of these guys that have killed and will order murder at the snap of a finger. Doesn't mean anything to them. It just has to be. I mean, that stuff like that's got to keep you up at night. I just can't imagine living that kind of life.
That's interesting question, statement you just made, because the one thing you can read 100 books, 300, 1,000 books on organized crime. You can read all the stories, watch all the movies, you can know all the history. And I did a lot. That's where, like, when I wrote my book, The Don, I was researching. I traveled to locations, things like that. But I didn't. There's no research like looking into the eyes some someone that really is like an old school guy that been raised and schooled in that life, and they just have a different way they see the world. I saw one of the FBI agents, I don't remember which one said it, but when he looked into Neil Delacroce's eyes, and he said, man, it was like, wow, it was really like something. He had no soul in his eyes and stuff. And I wouldn't, and I've never told this story publicly and don't plan to, but um, I did have a situation where I'm just doing research, essentially. But I went into a place before, and without giving much detail, I looked into a guy's eyes, a very prominent guy with a big name. Um, and he looked at me. When I looked at this guy, you can't read a book about it. When you look into the eyes of a killer, of a true mafiosi, a guy that this is how he's lived his whole life,
Right.
boy, it'll shake you up. And I'm talking about an older man that's much older now, and he was probably 4, 5, 6, 4, 5 inches shorter than me. A older man, senior man, frail man. I'm half his age, probably got him by 30 pounds. That don't matter. When you look into someone's eyes like that, you're seeing a different type of a person. You're seeing somebody
Right.
that is it's not the people, it's not, you can't write that in the book. And
Mm.
and you're looking at a person that plays and lives by a different set of rules. And I'll be honest, I called my agent, because that was just before my book went into editing. I called my agent and I said, of all my time researching the mafia, that was the best research I ever did. Because you feel it, and like you know the kind of people and the kind of person that you're dealing with. Like, and I knew it's time to get out of here.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's crazy. Wow. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk on the bananas, Bill, before we
No,
go?
no, no. Go ahead. Keep going.
So RJ, we know the mafia's still around, but how is there so many, informants and cooperators and now they all these gangsters and they have YouTube shows and and podcasts and different things. Like, how are they living without fear of getting killed?
You know, I think what the films did, um, because the younger class today, the up and coming guys in the mob today, the mafia has been so romanticized and glamorized, and it's been made into a sexy thing. Like I'm in because of films like Goodfellas and
Yeah,
Godfather and the way it's portrayed on these Netflix documentaries. I said this before that the mob was the sexy bad boys. They were the guys that
right,
they made it look good. But if you took the same group of guys and you dressed them in the way you look at most crime groups, if you put tattoos all over their face and wife beaters and they looked like cartel members, it wouldn't be the same allure from the general public. If
right.
you tied a bandana around their head and pulled their pants beneath their ass, it wouldn't be as sexy to the public. And it's funny that the same people that have so much like allure towards the mob, they have so much disdain towards any other crime groups and drug dealers. But the mob is no different than the cartels, than any crime group. They're as vicious, as ruthless. They are drug dealers, they are murderers, they are extortionists, they are backstabbers. No different than any other crime group ever.
Right.
And the difference with is those groups don't get the media and the sexiness. So they're
Right.
not but in the mafia, I think a lot of the people who came up and got into it later, they were just inspired by Goodfellas. No different than a guy who likes to play basketball and he watched LeBron James or Michael Jordan and he aspires to be in the NBA. You got guys who aspire to be in the mob because when they were young, they watched these movies and stuff. And I think today's group, they're just not like what we have historically known about the mafia. Because there was a pride associated with Cosa Nostra. To be that scene in Goodfellas when they said it's the highest honor they can give you. It means you
Right.
belong to a family. I mean, that was such a real statement. It meant there were people who would, and your boss, Joe Valachi said he used to stutter and shake when he would see Vito Genovese. When that's how much respect he had for the boss. He would stutter when he talked to him. He got nervous and he would perspire because that's how much the boss was like God at a certain time in Cosa Nostra. You shoot a man, drop the gun, stand there, wait for the cops. These guys before lived by a whole different world than today, the guys today. Guys before, they would never have allowed the disrespect of a guy can cooperate and testify against everybody and then go online and do a YouTube show and sit there every day and talk about Sammy the Bull, who can talk every day about John Gotti, talk about his family, talk about his children, talk about disparage. That could not have happened at a time. So when all this can happen, when made guys today, when guys who cooperated are having dinner in Bensonhurst, they're having dinner on Mulberry Street in Little Italy, they live in the same house that they were living in before they cooperated, and nothing happens, it kind of makes the mafia look really weak.
We will be right back.
Hey, Sean, I want to make sure that everybody knows about our Patreon. I know we mention it every once in a while on the show, but really important that people check out our Patreon. If you go to Patreon and search for That's Enough Out of You, or just click on the link in the description, you'll find we do an extra episode every week called The Speakeasy, and it's really usually just Sean and I kind of talking about the day's events, current events, and things like that. But a lot of exciting things. I mean, I know, Sean, you're constantly putting articles up there on our Patreon.
Yeah, and sometimes, Bill, we do bring on special guests. We had Dave Whelan on, we had Scranton Dave, and every now and then we bring Patreon members on. We've had different members, Scott Alfieri, Michael Pilch, Dan Hankey was on. So, there's an opportunity there. if you want to come on the show with us, you know. So there's a lot of things we're doing. Like you mentioned, Bill, the articles. I put articles up on a free site, but I also put articles on Patreon that's not available on the free site. You know, we have a lot of times I put up future intel about guests that we have coming up and stuff that we have coming up on the podcast. And you know, we created a great community there, Bill. There's a lot of chat goes on there. There's a community chat and a lot of the comments back and forth. Just the Patreon members always have great insight. So it's a community, Bill, and it's an opportunity for people to join for a really good price, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat it. You can certainly become a free member if you want to. There's also tiered levels to you know, with subscription amounts, and just for $1 that gets you everything. I mean, the $1 gets you everything, you know, including our weekly show. There's other tiers. I think, Sean, what is there, a $3 tier?
$3, there's a $5, there's a $10. I mean, and there's a $50 if people could afford to give 50.
Yeah, I mean, totally up to you. You know, once you join, you can make that decision, and certainly, you know, there's no commitment. I mean, you could join for a month or 2 months or whatever you want, and then you know, you can switch your subscription around. Totally up to you. I mean, that's, you know, people love Patreon for that reason. It really is. It makes it easy. It's kind of, you know, however you want to do it, however you want to join. And we certainly appreciate anybody who joins our Patreon and supports the show, because we definitely, you know, Sean, we're not getting rich off of this podcast, that's for sure. But we definitely, you know, appreciate any support that we get from our listeners.
And, you know, we also have our merchandise store. If people want to check out, we have the shirt that I have on now. We have mugs up there. We have cups, hats, anything you can do to help the podcast grow. We also have a bookshop up there, Bill, where all the authors that we have on our podcast, we have their books up. And it supports local bookstores, Bill. The money goes to local bookstores, a little bit to us, and then to the publisher and to the author. So it's a real good opportunity instead of buying Amazon and you know, making
supporting billionaires.
Right, sure. There's an opportunity. And as far as Patreon, one last thing, Bill, if you want to join as a free member, we do put some stuff up there for the free members, and then if you like it and you want to upgrade, you can do that.
Absolutely. So definitely check out our Patreon. Like I said, there's a link in the description to our Patreon, or you can just go to Patreon and search for That's Enough Out of You, look for our logo, and just fill in the information and you can join. All right. That's it, Sean. We appreciate all of our Patreon members, and we hope that you guys will consider checking it out if you haven't joined. Thank you.
Buddy.
Hey, Sean, before we move on, I just want to mention our sponsor, one of our sponsors, DK's Corner, located in Jessup, Pennsylvania. Right on Cherry Street, 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania. Sean, I had a cheesesteak, and I know the ads always mention the cheesesteaks, and we've had a few listeners comment on that. I actually just had one yesterday, and you know,
I thought you were on a diet.
I am. But I had to, well, the thing is, at work now, we've been ordering from DK's, and I keep smelling. Everybody's ordering these cheesesteaks, and I keep smelling them. So yesterday I broke down and I had to have one.
It's all right.
It's just, I'll tell you what, Sean, just delish. I love DK's Corner cheesesteaks. Dave makes everything himself there. Everything is so fresh. All the food he makes is just incredibly delicious. It's such a really a great menu too. I mean,
he gets really creative with a lot of the specials he has.
Yeah.
He has really good stuff, and you know, his pizza's fantastic, but he always has incredible specials, Bill.
And there's always different things there that, you know, you always have to make sure you check, go on, look on Facebook, DK's Corner on Facebook, because he's always got different specials, different things. He's
constantly changing the menu.
Constantly. And that's what, you know, keeps it fresh, keeps everything good. Just want to make sure that everybody knows the hours have changed. So I know the ad that we've been running gives different hours, but his hours are now Wednesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then he's open on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So he has breakfast. He has these breakfast bowls in the morning. They're delicious. Everything, like I said, everything he makes is great. He's got kind of a unique cooler in there with different sodas and stuff like that, different drinks. So make sure you call or stop by in Jessup. Again, it's 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania, if you're local here. in Northeast Pennsylvania, make sure that you stop by and check out DK's Corner again. Just delicious food, Sean. I know you order from there a lot too.
I order constantly from their building so many times that I sent people there. My brother went there, loved it. I had other people. Nathan loves it there. You know, it's just a great place. Sometimes I take it out. Sometimes I even sit there. It's really comfortable. But we get so many people, the listeners and stuff, that said, "Oh, I went to DK's and it was great." I can't tell you how many people. We just had a question episode where people were talking about it. Just unbelievable place. So definitely check that out.
All right, definitely check out DK's Corner. Go to Facebook, look up DK's Corner. Again, he's located at 201 Cherry Street in Jessup, Pennsylvania. Open Wednesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. DK's Corner.
Well, how do you think the young guys, the made guys today, how do you think they view them guys? Do you think they just totally ignored them, or do you think they look down at them and they just think like any retribution just isn't worth it and not worth the attention that it'll bring by taking one of them out?
You know, I have a show with Mikey Scars, and he's probably the last of the original Cosa Nostra guys. He goes back 150 years. His family name traces all the way back to Sicily. In my opinion, he's the last capo. He was there when, he was really like the last major guy in the family, I think, that's talking today. And, one of the things he constantly says is like, guys are going to go to jail. They know they're going to get caught. And we go back and forth on this a lot. We debate this one because I see it a little differently. I don't know, since when does a gangster become afraid and go to jail? Like, that's what the life you signed up for. So you always knew you could commit a murder and end up getting caught. A lot of guys went to jail for murder. John Gotti's hit on McBratney. He went into a bar that was full of people.
Mm-hmm.
Killed a guy in the street, like, in front of everybody. You have to think, okay, we're going into a bar pretending to be cops or whatever they were doing. When you're ordered. So this thing today of like, it's just, to me, it's more of like a club today. It is there, guys, but you see what they're mostly doing. They're playing cards, they're gambling, they're socializing. I think it's like more like a club today. I think there's still a respective order, an administration, a boss, a underboss, a consigliere, capos, soldiers, but I think it's just not the violent end of it the way it used to be. I think it's like more like about networking now and doing business and things like that. But guys don't want to go to jail anymore. RICO is another big thing. RICO wasn't there before. Now it's really hard to do things that you used to be able to do. And the higher you got up into the hierarchy, the more insulated and protected that you were. Now RICO, you can bring everybody down. The top guy can come, you can come after the top guy. Sentences are much longer now. You wasn't getting hit with these sentences at a time. So you can argue it both ways. Maybe it's just the knowledge of this ain't worth spending my whole life in. And guys didn't have fear of these long sentences the way they do now. So, but they don't seem to be very violent to be like today. They really don't seem to be very violent.
Why? What's everything you just said? Is that the reasons why we don't see the mafia murders today? But we see other groups, other ethnic gangs murdering left and right, but we don't see any mafia murders anymore. Is it because of everything you just talked about, or is there a rule? Because there was somebody said something about New York has a rule where they haven't sanctioned a murder in 3-4 years or something. Is that true? There hasn't been.
I heard the same thing. That sounds like crap to me. Imagine a criminal group that prides itself. You keep order on fear, and the penalty is death. Remember, when you get sworn in at the making ceremony, they tell you the penalty is death. You will live by the gun and by the knife, and you will die by the gun and by the knife. And how do you tell a guy to take an oath to kill? They ask you, what finger would you pull the trigger with? They prick that finger.
Right.
That's the blood comes out of your trigger finger. And now they do that in the ceremony, but then say, hey, we don't murder. It sounds like crap to me. And the reason why I argue back a little bit on the concept of, well, you're going to get caught. And every other crime group is killing. So, and there are many and murders that don't even get solved sometimes. So to just use that as, to me, that's a really convenient out. I just don't think it's, I don't know what the answer is, but I can only surmise that it's just changed that much where it's just not, it's like a club today. It's not a violent organization anymore.
Well, without that fear of being killed, how do the bosses keep control? Even if it is a club, like how do they keep control of the family without that fear?
And that's why I don't think they have very much control anymore. I think, there was that famous, what happened in the Bonannos not long ago. There was a captain, his name was Joe C. And he went to his father-in-law's funeral. He was put on the shelf and he was ordered to not go to the funeral, but he went anyway. He came with his own friends, his own biker friends and something. And the top captain in the Bonanno family, this is like not that long ago, shows up with some other guys, soldiers in the family and stuff. The guy on the shelf punched a captain, a top Bonanno captain, in the face, and all his friends beat these guys up. He's on the shelf. The shelf is, it means I that is like the last step before death.
Yeah.
It was like, we'll just put you on the shelf. You could be killed for this infraction, but for some reason we're going to put you on the shelf. On the shelf, you punch a captain in the face, you're dead. You're dead. Nothing ever happened. I believe he still lives in the same home on the same street.
Wow.
If that can happen, how do you put fear in the rest of your guys? And that's why I just don't think you can maintain. That's why I think it's like a club now.
Well, how is the mafia today? How are they making money with most of their traditional rackets? A lot of them are now legal. I mean, the lottery, gambling. I mean, even going back to liquor, and there's so many things are legal now. Marijuana and just so many different things. Like, so what's the true? What's the way that the mob is making money today?
We saw a recent bust where some Lucchese family guys, I believe it was that family, like men that were like 4 or 5 of them or something, all in like their 60s and 70s, were robbing a jewelry store. Like, I mean, you might as well just go snatch a purse. I mean, it just shows how there's no money in the streets. It's just so hard to make any money. Um, Joe Pistone, in his testimony, he talked about the importance of getting some government control over gambling because that was the most consistent revenue source for the mob. They always knew they had that money coming in every day, and it was the gambling money that funded everything else that they were doing, drugs or opening up businesses and things like that. But the gambling money was their constant flow. Today, I can go on my phone on FanDuel right now and place a bet.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about getting my legs broken. I don't have to deal with no strange guy who lives by a different code.
Right.
So it's gambling. They still do gambling. You see little things with gambling, but it's not like it used to be. It's not big money anymore. They still give out loans to a certain extent, but nothing like before. They are still have some small things going on in unions. We've seen a recent bust where they were selling fake OSHA cards or something. Like, I know it's like this is like funny, like to me, like some of the.
It's interesting, RJ, because
Are you thinking about Tulsa King, Bill?
No. What's interesting is it's so much like what happened in the movie Casino, where the big corporations came in and bought up all the Vegas casinos, and it was no longer really dangerous to go into a casino, which made it much easier for these people to lose all of their money. right? And that's what's happening now with sports betting. It's much easier. It's so much easier to access it, and you're not worried if you can't pay somebody back. You're not worried about someone coming to break your arm. So you're going to bet a lot more, and you're going to probably lose more of your money a lot quicker. It's just so interesting how legalizing these things makes it more dangerous to the end user than it actually was in the past.
What I was thinking of is the series Tulsa King with Stallone. There was a scene where these old timers, the commission guys, New York guys, they were sitting around and they're complaining about the rackets and all the traditional rackets are gone and stuff. And the one guy says to the other guy in another family, he says, "You guys still boosting packages from Amazon?" And that's what I was thinking about. Like that's
Yeah.
how far it fell.
And that's the other thing about it is before everything was localized, you had localized markets. You didn't drive 10, 15, 20 miles to work. You walked up the street and you worked at Bill's hammer or Bill's electrical store or Bob's plumbing, whatever. You worked at the local bakery. You worked at there was a local dentist, a local doctor, a local handyman. Everybody worked kind of in the community, and most things were owned by private owners, mom and pops, not huge multinationals, not huge corporations.
Right.
There's no more local tool shop, some tool and die maker or something. It's what do? Do you go into Home Depot, Target, Walmart, Starbucks, and ask for the general manager?
Yeah, they
And
had that
say,
in Sopranos. Remember, Billy? They mentioned that.
That's
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. They went into one of those Starbucks or whatever, and they wanted protection money. And the guy said, "Look, even if I wanted to give you money, I couldn't because they count. I'd be fired in 2 days, and the next guy would be here, and he wouldn't be able to give it to you."
I'll give you a story, a personal story. I did an interview where my agent rented out an Italian restaurant in Manhattan. So we shot it inside of this certain restaurant in Manhattan. And at the end of my shoot, I'm talking with the owners, and they were telling me stories how Carlo Gambino and Vincent Chin Gigante used to come in there, have meetings in the back, and they said, these were like the guys before were like gentlemen. They would come in, treat you well, give you big tips, and they would help you out with what you needed. They could help you get better suppliers and cheaper things, to whatever you needed. They looked after you a little bit. It wasn't just give me all your money. I want this much a week. It was more of like a handshake. It was they were working together. But he told me every year, the restaurant's still there right now. He said every year, once or twice, every year, he said, these punks come in here and try to shake me down. And he said, you see those baseball bats back there? They had like baseball bats propped up against the ice machine in the kitchen. They said, and we chase those punks out of here every year, at least once or twice a year. And they just run off. And because the biggest problem is the mob has not, you know how any business, you have to be innovative, find new product lines, find new ways to earn, extortion. Come on, guys. It's time to find a new way to earn. Going into it because the people just pick up the phone and call the FBI now. They pick up the phone and call the cops. If you let people be on YouTube that testified against you, and he can live safe and soundly, if he can go for a slice of pizza in Bensonhurst, even though he testified on everybody in Bensonhurst, then why would the local pizza shop owner be afraid to call the FBI? The guy who did a lot of harm to you, there's no penalty for him. So why would there be one for me when I did nothing to you other than say, I'm not paying you? So they just have to find a way to, if they want to, I think a lot of things are, there's a few earners, there's businesses, legitimate businesses and things like that. And I think a lot of the real big money comes from what they're doing legitimately. And there's buildings that they own, investment properties, restaurants. There's
Yeah.
there's really popular restaurants right now, right on Mulberry Street that is packed every day. You stand outside to get in because the line's so long. And there's guys that are connected in with, with the mafia. And so that's like probably their earning revenue, gambling, a little bit of gambling, but I don't think there's big money out there anymore.
See, that's the one thing though, RJ, the old timers, they were able to adapt. I mean, you go back to Prohibition, they adapted to that. And then after Prohibition, they had other rackets set up. They got into the unions. They always were scheming ahead. They were thinking ahead, and they always were able to adapt with what was going on. And that's something that you don't see today.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Pistone also testified about is that, and my partner Michael says this too. It went from being Cosa Nostra to Cosa Mia. It went from being our thing to my thing.
Mhm.
Pistone testified that the Americanized guys, he says he thinks it's going to lose strength and never come back to power because it's a me culture now. It was all about what can I make, what can I get, and the guys before, if you had the same guys from the 20s and 30s, somehow they could come alive today and be here in 2025. They would be in artificial intelligence. They
Right.
they would be
Yeah.
in cryptocurrency.
Yes.
They would be in globalization markets, and they would be in what's earning today. They would
Right.
not be
Trying to do the old time rackets that don't work anymore.
exactly. So the guys today just don't have the innovation or the guts or something to be able to find ways to move with the times and going into, I don't mean to belabor the point, but Sonny, this is a good story. Sonny Franzese did all those decades in jail, and he comes out of jail and went a whole new time, went the 2000s. He's like almost 100.
Yeah.
And he starts trying to extort pizza shops and strip clubs and stuff, and he was immediately arrested. Like, he just came out of prison with the same mindset he had 30 years prior and thinks business as usual. No, the times changed.
Right. Well, it's interesting. The guy you mentioned earlier, the FBI agent Garcia, Jack Garcia. Now he believed, right, that he thinks that the mob is going to become powerful again because of the lack of, attention it's receiving now from the FBI because they're not focused on Cosa Nostra now. They're into other areas. They don't have the squads like each family had a squad the FBI was dedicated to and would go after. And now that attention it just isn't there. Do you agree with him, or do you just think that it's just never gonna ever get to the level it was?
No, I respectfully, because I like Jack Garcia, and I know Jack Garcia. I've interviewed Jack Garcia, and but I disagree for this reason. Um, and yes, a lot of people are talking about how the C16 squad was just busted up or flattened, but my understanding is it's not even. And I recently found this out. C16 is not. It just merged in with, I believe, C5. So before, every family had its own group that went to each family. So there was five
Right.
squads that had five
Sure.
families. So I think C16 was a certain number of families, and then C5 was a certain number of families. But that's not the case. It's just all got pushed into one group um, that's handling all of it, which is probably sufficient with what's happening today. I don't know that you need two squads, but I here's why I disagree. Um, my all my time of studying crime, what I have learned is that crime comes out of desperation.
Mhm.
It's usually uh, poverty. Condition of poverty is this beginning, and everything sprouts and grows from that condition. So even if you look at just the country, anytime in any area of the country where the crime rate is the lowest, it's where economic conditions are the highest.
Sure.
And anywhere in the country where you see high crime rates, you have very high levels of poverty also.
Right, sure.
Cosa Nostra was they fled when they left Sicily and came over to the U.S. They were leaving famine, labor-intensive jobs, bad labor markets, just bad. Let's say they came here. Little Italy today, it's metropolitan area is beautiful. It's very ritzy, but that was a slum, like the poorest people in the country. They all were living over there on Mulberry and Mott and everything, and they were poor. The country didn't treat them good. They couldn't get no. They were paid very low wages. Everybody in the family had to work. The kids had to work to help. Cosa Nostra the mafia was born out of desperation. People started forming together, creating groups, finding ways to survive. They were shaking people down. They were selling drugs. They were doing all these things because and also, if you notice, all crime groups, by and large, they're ethnically connected. So you'll see the Crips and the Bloods in that area of, California, they're all black people living together. They're very segregated. So you're culturally alike. So you understand how everybody thinks. It's easier to operate criminal activity if you know what the culture and the mindset is of the people. The Italians they were culturally alike and they were segregated. When you see like the Latin Kings or the Mexican gangs or the cartel, they're ethnically aligned.
Sure.
So where I disagree a little bit with Jack's thesis is Italians are not segregated anymore into little enclaves and boroughs like they used to be. No. And the Italians are not an economically disadvantaged group anymore. So where are you getting the talent from?
Right.
Now, if they change the rules and say we're letting in blacks and all these different, but it's still not going to work because you're culturally not the same.
Right.
So
Sure.
I don't know how the mob can ever grow and get stronger again if under the system of we only make Italians men and XYZ, because it's really hard to find the soil doesn't exist that would breed a growing stronger mafia.
And there's just not a lot of people that are 100%, so many, marriages intermingled and you just don't see that 100% Italian even on one side of the family anymore.
Yeah. Can I jump in real quick? And I think there's a little bit of a lag with my connection for that. I apologize. Sean, I forget who it was that we were talking to where we were talking about how Hollywood kind of glorified the mob.
James Day. We were talking to James Day about
so, and RJ, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this because, Hollywood has really, glorified the mob, going all the way back to, the 1940s and some of the gangster movies back then. And then with The Godfather, making it seem like, making them almost portraying them as royalty. Right. And, we've seen so many, there've been so many mob movies over the years. There've been great ones. There've been terrible ones. But Hollywood keeps making them. And what we were discussing is how come Hollywood kind of chose the Italian mafia to kind of ride that wave. And there are so many others. We just talked about, there are so many other of these, there's inner city gangs, there's the Mexicans, there's, all of these different crime operations. And there really hasn't, the Hollywood really hasn't done anything, to portray any of those. There have been some films here and there, but, what I said was, I feel like, hip hop culture and kind of that, gangster rap culture, I believe is even more popular and even more prevalent than, than Italian mafia, popularity. And it's just hard for me to imagine why there hasn't been more sort of media, more, I guess you'd call it entertainment made from, from those subcultures as well. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the weakness of, I have this theory that 85%, I would probably almost go 90% of people are just very, they go by what they see. The easily 90% of people need to be led. And then
Right.
10% of people understand how 90% are and they exploit it.
Right.
So, and you see all these great theorists and writers, Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, he talks about it in his book about the public, how the public is just essentially just dupes and we use them for what we need them for. You can find it in books like Edward Bernays' Propaganda. He talks extensively about how the public is, and Noam Chomsky talks about it. Most great theorists, Carl Jung has talked about it. 90% of people, their minds, think about this. Luigi Mangione shoots
Right.
this CEO of United.
Right.
And by so many people are saying he's a hero, and this guy's evil. This is these capitalist pigs. Blah. Let me ask you this though: if Luigi Mangione was not a nice-looking, attractive guy that all these women think, wow, he's so sexy, he's this, he's that. Take the same situation. Take the guy that just stabbed the girl in the chest on the train.
Right.
Guy that looks, shabby and uninspiring. Take somebody who's run down and shabby and uninspiring, and let him shoot that guy on the. I think the public would have been a little different reaction.
100%. I mean, let's be totally honest here, RJ. If he was a black guy with dreads and tattoos all over his face, yeah, there is not the same public reaction. Absolutely
No
not.
question. 100%. If the same situation, same CEO, same gun, don't change nothing, just make a guy with a bandana on,
Right.
his pants hanging off his ass, dreads, tattoos on his face. Let him do that.
Right.
There is a totally different public reaction.
Totally different.
100% agree.
Yeah.
And that's what the mafia is, the same exact thing.
Yeah.
The mafia has chopped people up. The famous barrel murders, they have, the mafia is brutal, can be brutal things. The mafia, these are the biggest drug dealers ever in the country.
Yes.
Pizza Connection, Patsy Conti, they were shipping heroin and cocaine all over America.
Right.
These were huge drug dealers.
Huge.
Same people who support the mafia are the same people that are very conservative, very pro-Trump, we got to get all these
Bingo.
Mexicans. They're bringing in fentanyl. They're killing our kids. But I don't understand the thinking. These groups have peddled the same exact thing that's coming over the southern border that everyone's upset with is the same exact thing that happened in Cosa Nostra with major drug dealers like Johnny Gambino and Patsy Conti and Carmine Galante and all these guys.
Yeah.
It is the same. The only thing that's different is one is playing to the weakness of the 90%. Oh, he looks inspiring. Look at that Brioni suit. He drives a Mercedes. He talks a little nicer. He calls you Mr. and ma'am and sir, and he kisses the hands of the old women in the neighborhood. And but the guy's is a hog in a suit. He's the same person. He's the same person. He's doing the underlying condition. If you look under the hood, they're all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that 100%. It's really sad. It's really bad. But like you said, these guys were so bad at drugs. I mean, the network that they had with drugs, and I was just doing a lot of work on the CIA's involvement with the Cosa Nostra with drug dealing, and that goes with Trafficante and Giancana. And I was doing a lot of research on that, on the declassified documents. And it's unbelievable what was going on, and the huge networks like you talked to RJ. It's actually a lot bigger than what's coming over now. I mean, the only thing maybe with the Colombians, with Escobar, that might have been a totally different level. That was enormous. But I mean, Cosa Nostra has a long history, and it's funny that they always had that rule. They say, don't do drugs. Certain bosses would have that rule, but the rule was always, let's face it, don't get caught, is what the
Right.
rule was.
Exactly.
They knew where the money was coming from.
That's the rule. It was almost like, it reminds me of the old policy in the U.S. military: don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah,
If you were gay,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
see, there was never, the mafia has never not been in drugs. I believe every family had selected people that the boss knowingly was into drugs. What I believe is the mafia wanted to control who was going to be doing it. Paul Castellano surely knew
Sure,
about Patsy Conti.
sure.
John Gotti surely knew about Patsy Conti. They knew he was a major drug dealer. Now, what I don't think that they want is cowboy style drug dealing where everybody's out running around, because there were big sentences and it did create a lot of cooperation and flippers and things like that. But most of what the mob claimed was all just, again, the 90% of the people in the family they fall for the nonsense. You move up in the mafia by breaking rules, by making money, by killing people, by eliminating competition. And most bosses got the power by breaking all the rules the whole way up. Most bosses killed their boss to become a boss. There's a rule against that. A lot of bosses were drug dealers. There was a rule against that. A lot of bosses would just there's a rule against coveting another person's businesses. They were taking people's businesses. They were eliminating competition. So the five, Joe Valachi, the reason why in my book I say I write this book in honor of Joe Valachi, because I love the way he spoke about the way it truly is. It was nothing but the people at the high level exploiting the people at the low level, like
Right.
everything else that we see in society. You can work at Walmart. The money's up here and the poverty's down here. And it's the same as in the mafia. The money's up here and down here, there's none. And everybody is fighting and trying to survive. And as you move up, you get more power and more money. And you're squeezing every nickel from the guys at the bottom. Joe Pistone even testified to that, about how they were just squeezing every nickel out of the guys at the bottom.
Go ahead, Billy. You got something?
No, Sean, go ahead.
Well, let's just wrap it up on this, RJ, because we've been going like an hour here. So the state of the mafia today, like, you at one time you had what, 26 families across the country plus satellites, and what would you say today? Because I think the last report I read was they said that like half of those families exist, most of the satellites are gone, and then of course the five families that made up the commission are still active, but um, I heard at one time even that they had a panel actually controlling each family. I don't know if that was true, to make it a little harder for the government to come after. But how many families do you think still exist today? Like, what do you think the state of the entire national structure of Cosa Nostra is?
Now, some people, because the names are around. So a Cosa Nostra, a mafia family, is a sophisticated thing. It has an administration. It has a middle management on executive level, which is, so to be a family, you have a boss, a underboss, a consigliere. Then you have a
Capo.
series of capo regimes or captains that have inside of them 10, 12, whatever, certain numbers of members. And what that grouping of capos are doing is regulated by the administration. And then membership is voted on, and that's a family. As far as a truly functioning family with an administration, That's different than what is a crew of guys working together. Some
Sure.
people think because there's 10 guys in Boston that still work together under that banner,
Right.
that is like the patriarchal family, or
Right.
someone thinks
Right.
that. I believe there are old crews around in different families, guys working together, that the
Sure.
family kind of collapsed and this guy's doing stuff together. That ain't a family to me.
Right.
Um,
I agree.
no, not even to me. That's not a family.
Right.
As far as fully functioning administrations with people beneath it, I think for sure the five in New York is there. I,
Chicago.
I would say, from I'm told, Chicago and Detroit. Hard to find any real information today on Chicago, even from people that I know in Chicago who are deep
Right.
researchers on Chicago. So they're either doing it the right way with very, very quiet, but a lot of people do believe that Chicago's in a lot of legitimate stuff, making a lot of money and stuff. But just to give you a flat answer, I would say for sure the five families, Buffalo, I would say,
Oh, yeah.
Detroit,
Right.
I would say Chicago, yes. Um,
Would you say Philly's kind of like what you were talking about, just a crew of guys, not really a
these are the two that I struggle with. I won't argue if someone says yes.
okay.
So if someone said the Cavalcantes
Right.
have a, and I would say there's probably the Cavalcantes are still there. There's probably an administration and some things going on there. Um, I'll say Philadelphia because we caught the underboss was caught on tape saying, identifying himself as an underboss. He was making new guys. He identified another guy in the room as being a captain. And so there's some reason to believe that there's still maybe a functioning family to a certain extent in Philadelphia. Um, so that's 10.
That's probably it, right?
I would say I don't have no information to say there's anything more than that.
Wow.
I'm a little on New Jersey and Philly, but I wouldn't argue no if someone say yes. I just don't have no. You see how I just don't have no strong information that I can find to say yes. But for the sake of this discussion, I'll say there's probably 10 active families still.
How powerful is Detroit today?
That's the thing. I mean, they say it's being headed by Jackie the Kid.
Hmm.
They say they're in business and legitimate stuff and unions and they're making. But I it's said by a lot of people that they're doing it the right way, the quiet, the off the radar. But I don't know. If I claim to know, I would be lying. But I asked my partner, who as of 2002, what families were still there because he was on the streets till 2002, and he named all of them, and he certainly believes that Detroit and Chicago are really doing well. That's what he believes.
Well, Chicago's always had a history of being able to adapt. I mean, you go back to, and I think we talked about this last time you were on. I think the smartest Cosa Nostra boss in history, in my opinion, was Tony Accardo because he was able to, stay in the shadows. He was able to learn from Capone and take all of Capone's bad habits and turn them into strengths and kind of do the opposite. He didn't get in big long wars like Capone. He didn't seek publicity. He stayed in the shadows, and he was able to. He worked with a lot of people. You could say he was a 1A, 1B with Paul Rica, and it was just the way he ran that for years, and he even survived the end of the Rico statute when you think about it, because I think he died in '92, and he was able to still avoid Rico, which is amazing when you think about it. Because I mean, so I think Accardo was probably the smartest of all the bosses. He used front bosses his whole career, and he was just
Yeah.
able to stay out of prison.
The families that, when you're leaking blood, you're going to eventually die. So the more
Yeah.
bloody you are as a family, the more you're weakening your family. Um, killing a lot of people. We're so stuck on this 80s era, John Gotti era, Five Family era of blood, Sammy the Bull era, all this stuff that we just saw bodies in the street nonstop, that it has impregnated the minds of the people interested in this stuff that, oh, the mob, because they're not, you don't see all this blood anymore. But the families that all that killing means you were bringing in the wrong people.
Right.
If you have to keep killing everybody you're making, you shouldn't have made them. So,
Right.
Detroit,
Good point.
Chicago, they were a little. Joe Valachi talked about how Chicago was the family doing it right. Their family didn't have to do drugs because they gave a stipend to every member in the family of $25. This is way back, but
Right.
they were getting $25 a week just for being a member, and it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to make you not have to go resort to drugs dealing or something. He said in New York, they'll just let you starve. That's what Joe Valachi said about the New York bosses. They'll leave you to starve and say, don't sell drugs though. So the Chicago and Detroit, they were always kind of known as the West Side, the Genovese family. They're looked at by most measurable standards as the family that was like the Cadillac, the Rolls Royce
Yeah,
family.
sure.
But Detroit and Chicago, these were really smart families doing it the right way. New Orleans, another one, Carlos Marcello. These were people who just were, even when that family was weakening and they were down to, I always tell this story about John Gotti had a meeting with the boss of New Orleans. And John Gotti asked them, John Gotti and Sammy, John said, how many people are in your family? He said 6 people.
Wow.
And he said, and we don't have no plans to make any more guys. And, we're solid. We trust each other essentially. And we're just going to leave it. He was essentially saying, we're going to let this thing die out. We're not going to make 6 people with a whole family.
Wow.
Because they'd rather have 6 good guys.
Sure.
And the 5 families is just about keeping numbers up, keeping memberships, keeping it. There's 260 people in the Gambino family, 260 in the Genovese family. And when a seat goes empty, they'll bring it in. But if the talent's not there, just don't fill the seats.
Right. Well, RJ, another great great episode with you. We really appreciate you coming on.
I love it.
Thanks,
So
buddy.
just want to make sure everybody knows your book, The Don, 36 Rules of the Bosses. Sean, there it is. Sean, do we have that available?
It's on our store. It's on our
all right.
bookshop.
All right,
Yes.
cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we'll link to it in the description. Make sure, you go out and get RJ's book and support him. It's a great book. So, but RJ, we really appreciate you taking time to come on with us. It's always a good discussion with you.
Always,
Thank
brother.
you. Thank you. Yes, for sure. You guys got to get a real. Have you guys ever had any of the guys on yet? Like guys from that were in the mob?
No, we haven't.
We've
Not
had
yet.
a couple of the reporters on.
Yeah.
Who we had, Sean?
We had Larry McShane. We had Tony DiStefano. We haven't had any main guys on. No.
Maybe I can put the word in if you can get Mikey Scars to come on and talk with you.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll take it on.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
All right, cool. All right, thank you, RJ, so much.
All right, thanks, RJ.
Man.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's always
Appreciate it.
enjoy talking with you guys.
All right, take care. That's Enough Out of You podcast is executive produced and written by Bill Rader and Sean Kane and edited by Bill Rader. The That's Enough Out of You podcast and logo are exclusive property of Bags of Chicken, LLC. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or accounts of this podcast without the express written consent of Bags of Chicken, LLC is prohibited. So don't even try it.